Lexi? Are you gonna be in the game? Come on, sweetie. This is going to be a little bit of like a vlog series that I'm going to be doing. Let me take you back to August 14th, where I decided I was going to DM my first campaign. I already started making up ideas since then, but now I decided, after I'd done some planning, I'd put that aside because I wanted to chronicle my DM planning process over filming in a little series I'm going to be calling the DM Diaries. This idea for this campaign dates back to April 2020, where I joined my first campaign, but that campaign, even though it like lasted for a long time, it was really rough. Our DM rarely showed up because of like a lot of different issues that happened. We played like half of our scheduled sessions. But like, I didn't want to let that campaign go. This was the campaign where my bard Aryavari, a little clip of her here I guess, in action. I have lied to survive, sugar, you know I'm good. This was one where I wasn't ready to say goodbye to her or like the story in that campaign. But during the playing of it and after seeing some posts, I realized that that campaign was very flawed and there was like a bunch of weird connections and things that really could have been explored that weren't. And so I'm half homebrewing it. I am taking the plot and the bone structure of this campaign and I'm fleshing it out and putting it into a homebrew world. Why? I don't know why I decided to do it like that instead of just doing it basically. I guess I just have a little bit too much ambition in me. So that campaign is the Tyranny. I'm an author, I should know how to pronounce things. The Tyranny of Dragons campaign. This book is just beautiful. I am so glad I got it. And yeah, it's basically going into a homebrew world. I've already managed to get some notes on this on my computer, which is basically different names for each of the settlements that are gonna be reskinned. Because, of course, you know, dragons are a big thing in this. I decided to name each town after a different colored dragon, just in a different language. For instance, the town that my characters start in is Zlato. I think it's how you say gold in like Belgium. Do not quote me on that. I've still got to work out which towns are going to be which, like events, because basically in this original one, you go all across the Swords Coast, but not enough time to be able to like work out what each of them is. Like, they go into Waterdeep for one section in chapter 5, I think, and it's barely touched. You don't get a sense of Waterdeep in that at all. So that's like the main thing I wanted to do in that, is make sure that there was a lot more time to explore the towns and like work out some like the cultures in them and really make it feel like a world. Second one is the side of the factions. In the second half, the factions that are in the Swords Coast, like the Harpers, Order of the Gauntlet, Emerald Enclave, those are like really pivotal to the story in the second half, in the Rise of Tiamat section. But in the Horde of the Dragon Queen, they are present, but not significantly present. So I wanted to try and do that in my campaign. And it also gave me a chance to include my player character, Aryavari, as an NPC. Just like a little cute little tie-in and like homage to that. I got so far as to planning out the first session in this little notebook that I've got here. I'll just kind of like read out what I've got of this. So this starts usually in Greenest in the actual Tyranny of Dragons campaign, but this one is in the town called Zlato. The appropriate way for this to be framed as like a town and the situations that are going on. Why are the cultists so prevalent? If some level 1 characters are able to fight off these cultists and win, why isn't the town able to do that with their guard, even with the sheer number of cultists? Surely the guard might be a little bit more competent, especially when it's framed as being a town in the middle of nowhere. So I've decided that Zlato is a merchant's town. It's a good place for a lot of merchants to stop because it's the only road that leads up this part of the continent, which I've yet to name. There's a lot of merchants who are both living there and who come and go from there. they often have like a bunch of markets going on. And to kind of like tie the situation in, they actually held a charity market event where basically every merchant donated half of their profits to towns who had suffered the wrath of some cult attacks. This little town, this settlement, is probably a little bit bigger than most because it's got a keep, just for it to seem like a little bit more generous and to tie the story in together. It was probably a PR move made by Governor Nighthill. So all the characters are drawn to greenness, but what happens in the original adventure is that they just stumble upon and the village is under attack. I found it would be better if we do the typical you guys meet in a tavern situation, because these guys are already inside greenness, they're already exploring it, and they have a personal threat when the cult comes to attack the town. And that's basically what's gonna happen. There's gonna be cultists, kobolds, they're gonna barge into the tavern and start like harassing everyone inside of it. And this is a chance for the party to step up, team up, and fight together. And then the guards come around and usher them to the keep and try and recover any prisoners along the way. Prisoners of the cult, that is. I know that another flaw that I found was that there was just a dragon that came in, intimidated everybody, and then fled. That was a little bit weird. So I decided that the way to like make it like feel a little bit more intimidated is if there was a dragon slayer in there. So among the factions that I'd made up, there was one faction that I decided to call the Larith Knights. They are basically knights of one of the oldest gold dragons, I believe. And one of them is going to be fighting off this dragon, then she gets a severe injury, basically incapacitated, and the dragon is almost down, so the party basically have to try and either finish the dragon off because they're almost down or scare the dragon away. So that's just a little bit there. I'll take you now over to my computer where I've got some of my other notes on the faction side of things. This is one that I am really hyped for. Here we are. So I've basically just created a Google Docs folder. The only notes I've made so far is I've got a folder which I'm going to be putting my sessions in soon. And then I've got the Google Doc here on the factions that I've decided to come up with. Within these factions, I've got listed down in the list, I've got the name of the faction, then I've got a little description about what the faction is about. So this example here is the Cadence. This is basically like Harper's meets Cobalt Soul from Critical Role, where basically a bunch of people are coming together and they seek to wipe out corruption and make sure everyone is treated fairly. And then from there, I've added the characters. Some of these are my own as like little extras, such as my tiefling Aryavari right there. So the way that they are framed in the book, at least for the leaders, like Ramalia Haventree, is that they've got things that they value, ways that they act, and then I've also added in classes, subclasses, and stuff like that. So for instance, Leosin, he's going to be taking the Cobalt Soul kind of monk because that's basically what he is. He extracts information. My Bard is going to be Valor, just as normal. We got a Divination Wizard, Inquisitive Rogue, Wave the Open Hand Monk, etc, etc. And then of course we've got the assets that they provide, their council detailings. A lot of these are basically reskinning the original factions, but then instead of the Lords of the Waterdeep, I've got different like kinds of parliament systems, I guess you'd call them. So for instance, Laryl Silverhand, I decided due to her being a human wizard, she'd be in charge of the magocracy of one of the towns. So they basically each have a representative from the towns. Then we've got other stuff like the Sivart Court. Northern Nereful, I have yet to decide what they're gonna be. Something from Mezing and the Larith Knights, like I mentioned before. So basically each of them I'm going to be having characters and they're going to be popping up throughout the encounters just so that they'll be able to kind of shape the world out, and so the characters will be able to understand what they're getting into. While we're here, I guess we can talk a little bit about the characters, because the NPCs are definitely not fleshed out, at least the ones that were present there. Like Leosin and Omthar, they barely have any personality when you first read up about them. And so it's gonna take a lot for me to be able to do that, because I feel like personality and like how you're able to show that personality is a very big part of playing NPCs and making a campaign memorable. I definitely know there's a lot that I need to do. I'm needing to like take a bunch of notes by reading through the campaign. I'm going to be basically working out what works in them and what doesn't work at all. And then I've got to do my characters as well. I've got to work out where each of them are going to be appearing. I want each of them to have presence, or most of them to have a presence, before we go into the councils. So yeah, ready to start a great big adventure with this campaign. I'm going to be like kind of chronicling on this. I'm probably going to have to put dates in it because I suspect that my campaign is going to start earlier than the videos will be coming out, but we shall see. I feel like this is going to be a great little thing that we're going to be doing. Great little series.